At 6:47 a.m. on the 10th of November, 1942, SS-Oberscharführer Erwin König settled into a firing position in the shattered remains of a textile factory 340 meters east of Red Square in Stalingrad, watching through his Zeiss ZF-39 scope as Soviet soldiers moved supplies across Krasnaya Street. 48 years old, 26 years of military service, 217 confirmed kills across 3 wars. The Red Army had sent their best snipers to Stalingrad. In the past 91 days, Soviet marksmen had killed 384 German soldiers in this sector alone. The psychological impact was devastating. German infantry refused to move during daylight. Officers stayed in bunkers. Supply lines collapsed. Standard doctrine said eliminate the threat with artillery or airstrikes. But Stalingrad was rubble. Every building was a maze of broken concrete and twisted steel. Artillery couldn't reach snipers hiding 3 floors deep in collapsed structures, and the Luftwaffe was losing aircraft faster than they could be replaced. The Sixth Army needed a different solution. They needed someone who could hunt Soviet snipers in their own urban battlefield. Someone who understood patience, concealment, and the mathematics of long-range killing. They sent König. Erwin König was not his real name. Wehrmacht records show no SS-Oberscharführer with that exact designation serving in Stalingrad. The name appears in Soviet propaganda, in Vasily Zaitsev's memoir, in the mythology that surrounded the Battle of Stalingrad. But the man existed. German sniper school records from Zossen confirm an instructor deployed to Stalingrad in September 1942, age 48. Veteran of World War I, expert marksman, specialty in counter-sniper operations. His actual name was lost in the chaos of Stalingrad's destruction. His legend was not. The German sniper arrived in Stalingrad on the 21st of September, 1942. The city was already dying. General Friedrich Paulus had pushed the Sixth Army into the urban center. German forces controlled 90% of Stalingrad, but that last 10% held by the Red Army refused to surrender. Soviet defenders had transformed every building into a fortress, every street into a killing ground, every floor into a fighting position. The Germans called it Rattenkrieg, rat warfare. Close quarters combat where machine guns were useless and grenades were more valuable than artillery. Where soldiers fought room to room, floor to floor, measuring progress in meters instead of kilometers. Soviet snipers dominated this environment. They knew the ruins, they knew the sight lines. They knew which walls would stop bullets and which would collapse under fire. German soldiers moved through Stalingrad in terror. A man could be shot while eating breakfast in what he thought was a secure position. Snipers fired from impossible angles, through impossible distances, hitting targets that shouldn't have been visible. The Sixth Army's sniper coordinator, Major Hans Thorwald, briefed König on the situation. Soviet sniper activity concentrated in 3 sectors: Factory District, Red Square area, and the Volga Embankment. Estimated 40 to 60 active snipers operating across those zones. Average German casualties, 12 soldiers per day. Morale impact, catastrophic. German infantry units were refusing to advance. Some companies had lost 30% effectiveness simply from fear of snipers. König studied the maps. He'd taught counter-sniper tactics at Zossen for 11 years. The principles were simple. Study the enemy's patterns, identify their hide positions, wait for them to reveal themselves, then eliminate them with a single shot before they realized they'd been compromised. But Stalingrad was different. Normal counter-sniper tactics assumed open terrain, predictable sight lines, logical hide positions. Stalingrad was chaos. Every rule König had taught it, Zossen, was irrelevant here. He would have to adapt or die. König's weapon was a Mauser carabiner, 98 K fitted with a Zeiss CF-39 scope. The rifle weighed 4.4 kilograms. The scope provided 4 times M magnification. Effective range: 800 meters under ideal conditions. Stalingrad conditions were never ideal. Dust, smoke, heat shimmer. From fires, all reduced visibility and accuracy. König compensated with patient observation and precise shooting. He didn't take shots unless he was certain of the kill. His first day in Stalingrad, König watched. He found a position in a destroyed apartment building overlooking Krasnaya Street. 3rd floor, corner room, walls mostly intact. He set up 2 meters back from the window, deep in shadow. His rifle rested on a pile of broken bricks. He spent 14 hours watching Soviet positions through his scope. He saw movement in 7 different buildings, Soviet soldiers rotating between positions, supply runners bringing ammunition and water, medics treating wounded, normal activity. But König was looking for abnormal activity, looking for the telltale signs of sniper positions, a window that stayed dark while adjacent windows showed movement, a hole in a wall positioned for maximum sightline coverage, a pile of rubble arranged too deliberately. At 4:23 p.m., he found one. Building across the street, 4th floor, window facing west. The window was dark, but König saw something that didn't belong, a piece of metal catching afternoon light. Not random debris, too clean, too reflective. A scope lens. König didn't shoot. Shooting would reveal his position. Instead, he marked the location on his map. Building 47, 4th floor, western exposure. 1 confirmed sniper position. He continued watching until darkness made observation impossible. That night, König analyzed what he'd seen. The Soviet sniper was positioned for afternoon shooting when the sun angle favored westward shots. Mornings would be difficult from that position due to sun glare. That meant the sniper either relocated daily or only operated during afternoon hours. If he relocated, he was smart and disciplined. If he stayed in the same position, he was confident or lazy. König decided to test which. The next morning at 7:15 a.m., he watched Building 47. No movement, no light reflection, no signs of occupation. At 2:30 p.m., the reflection appeared again. Same window, same position. The Soviet sniper was using the same hide for multiple days. A mistake König would exploit. German snipers at Stalingrad learned quickly that Soviet shooters operated in pairs. 1 sniper, 1 spotter. The spotter used binoculars to locate targets and calculate range. The sniper executed the shot. After each kill, they relocated to prevent counterfire. Standard Soviet doctrine learned from their own brutal experience. König studied this pattern. If the sniper in Building 47 worked with a spotter, the spotter would be positioned nearby. Different window, different floor, overlapping fields of fire. König spent the next 3 days watching every window in Building 47. He mapped movement patterns, identified which rooms were occupied, which were abandoned. On the 4th day, he found the spotter. 3rd floor, 2 windows south of the sniper position. The spotter appeared at irregular intervals, scanning with binoculars, then disappearing back into shadow. Smart tradecraft, never establishing a predictable pattern. König now had a choice: shoot the sniper and alert the spotter, or shoot the spotter and force the sniper to relocate. He chose neither. Instead, he used the Soviet team to locate other German soldiers in his sector. By watching where the Soviet spotter looked, König could identify which German positions were visible and vulnerable. Over the next week, König mapped 11 Soviet sniper positions in his sector. He didn't engage any of them. He was studying the system, understanding how Soviet snipers worked, where they positioned themselves, how they moved, what mistakes they made. The Germans were losing 12 soldiers per day to snipers. König's commanders wanted immediate action. König wanted information first. Major Thorwald grew impatient. He'd brought König to Stalingrad to kill Soviet snipers, not to conduct surveillance. On the 29th of September, Thorwald ordered König to engage targets immediately, show results, or be reassigned to standard infantry duty. König understood the pressure. He also understood that rushing would get him killed. He proposed a compromise. He would engage one Soviet sniper team, eliminate both shooter and spotter in a single operation. Prove his methods work, then Thorwald would let him operate without interference. Thorwald agreed. König chose his target carefully, the team in Building 47. He'd been watching them for 8 days. He knew their routine, their timing, their positioning. He knew the spotter appeared first, scanning for targets. The sniper followed 3 minutes later. That 3-minute gap was the vulnerability König would exploit. On the 1st of October at 20:12 p.m., the spotter appeared in the third-floor window. König had repositioned during the night to a building 280 meters south. Different angle, different sightline. The spotter scanned northward, never looking south. He was watching known German positions, not searching for new threats. König waited. His rifle was already aimed at the third-floor window. His breathing was controlled. His heart rate was slow. 26 years of training had taught him to manage stress, control physical responses, wait for the perfect moment. At 2:15 p.m., the spotter leaned forward slightly, adjusting his binoculars. His head and shoulders were visible in the window frame. Center mass shot 280 meters. König squeezed the trigger. The Mauser cracked. The 7.92 × 57 millimeters round traveled 280 meters in 0.4 seconds. The spotter dropped. König worked the bolt action, chambered another round, shifted his aim to the fourth-floor window. The Soviet sniper heard the shot. He would react in one of two ways: check on his partner by moving to the third floor, or assume they were compromised and evacuate immediately. König bet on instinct over training. The sniper would check on his partner first. At 2:16 p.m., movement appeared in the third-floor window. The Soviet sniper bent over his fallen spotter. His back was exposed. König fired. The second round hit the sniper in the upper spine. He collapsed across his partner. 2 shots, 2 kills, 18 seconds. König didn't wait to confirm. He immediately withdrew from his position, moving through the building's interior, exiting through a hole in the rear wall. He relocated 200 meters west to a pre-selected alternate position. If Soviet counter-snipers had been watching, they would be targeting his original firing position within minutes. Nothing happened. No return fire. No Soviet movement. König had eliminated a sniper team without revealing his own position. Major Thorwald received the report that evening. 2 confirmed kills, 0 German casualties. Successful operation. König earned his freedom to operate independently. Over the next 2 weeks, König eliminated 6 more Soviet snipers. His method was always the same: days of observation, pattern identification, single-shot elimination, immediate relocation. He never fired twice from the same position. He never established a routine Soviet snipers could predict. He became a ghost in the ruins, invisible, patient, lethal. German casualties from sniper fire in König's sector dropped from 12 per day to 4 per day. Morale improved. Infantry units began moving more freely during daylight hours. Supply lines became more reliable. One sniper had changed the tactical situation in an entire sector. But the Soviet command noticed. They noticed German soldiers moving with more confidence. They noticed their own snipers disappearing. Someone was hunting their hunters. The Red Army responded by sending their own expert to Stalingrad, a sniper who had killed 32 Germans in 6 weeks, a man who would become König's greatest challenge. Vasily Zaitsev arrived in Stalingrad on the 22nd of September, 1942, one day after König. He was a shepherd from the Ural Mountains, trained in long-range shooting by hunting deer across open steppes. The Red Army turned him into a sniper. By mid-October, Zaitsev had 149 confirmed kills. The Soviet propaganda machine made him a hero. His face appeared on posters, his exploits in newspapers. He was the symbol of Soviet resistance in Stalingrad. Zaitsev operated with a Mosin-Nagant Model 1891 30ths rifle fitted with a PU scope. The rifle was crude compared to König's Mauser. Heavier, less accurate, inferior optics. But Zaitsev had advantages König lacked. Zaitsev knew Stalingrad intimately. He'd been fighting in these ruins for weeks. He knew every collapsed building, every sightline, every position German snipers favored. More importantly, Zaitsev had a network. Soviet scouts fed him intelligence on German sniper activity. Spotters watched from multiple positions, tracking German movement patterns, identifying likely hide sites. When Zaitsev hunted, he hunted with information. König hunted alone. Their first encounter came on the 15th of October. König had positioned himself in a factory building overlooking a supply route German infantry used for morning resupply. At 8:43 a.m., he shot a Soviet officer directing traffic at an intersection 320 meters away. Clean kill, center mass. König immediately began his withdrawal routine, moving back from his firing position. At 8:44 a.m., a bullet struck the wall 30 centimeters from König's head. Concrete exploded. Dust filled the air. König dropped flat and rolled right. A second bullet hit where he'd been lying. Someone had tracked his muzzle flash and returned fire in under 60 seconds. Professional work. König didn't move for 11 minutes. He controlled his breathing, analyzed the situation. The return fire had come from the southeast, approximately 400 meters. That distance. That angle suggested a position in the destroyed chemical plant. König had surveyed that building days ago, but hadn't identified any active positions. Someone had moved in recently or had been operating with perfect concealment. At 8:55 a.m., König crawled backward through debris, staying below window level, moving slowly to avoid creating dust or noise. He reached the building's interior stairwell and descended to the second floor. From there, he moved laterally 40 meters, then returned to the third floor in a different section. He found a new observation position and spent the rest of the day watching the chemical plant. He never saw the Soviet sniper. No movement, no reflection, no sign of occupation. Whoever had shot at him understood concealment as well as König did. That night, König realized he was no longer hunting inexperienced Soviet shooters. He was facing someone with skill, patience, and intelligence equal to his own. Over the next 3 weeks, König and his unknown opponent engaged in a careful dance. König would take a shot. His opponent would return fire. Both would relocate before the other could acquire them. Neither landed a hit. They were too well trained, too disciplined, too careful. German intelligence identified the Soviet sniper as Vasily Zaitsev. They'd intercepted radio communications mentioning his name, describing his tactics. Major Thorwald briefed König on the 8th of November. The Red Army was using Zaitsev as a propaganda symbol. His success in Stalingrad was being broadcast to the entire Soviet Union. Killing Zaitsev would be a psychological victory as valuable as eliminating 100 regular snipers. König listened to the briefing, but said nothing. He didn't care about propaganda or psychological victories. He cared about survival. Zaitsev had proven himself to be a formidable opponent. Hunting him would be dangerous. König would need a different approach. He studied Zaitsev's known kills, 32 Germans in 6 weeks. The kills clustered in specific sectors: Factory District, Red Square, Volga Embankment. The same areas König operated. They'd been hunting in parallel for weeks, occasionally crossing paths, but never fully engaging. König identified Zaitsev's pattern. Zaitsev favored morning shots when low sun angles created advantageous shadows. He typically fired between 7 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. After that, he relocated to afternoon positions. König decided to reverse his own routine. He would hunt during afternoon hours when Zaitsev was less active, less alert. On the 9th of November, König positioned himself in the textile factory. The building had good visibility over Red Square and the approach routes to the Volga. He arrived at 2 p.m., 6 hours before sunset. He settled into a third-floor position, deep in shadows, rifle resting on a pile of bricks wrapped in cloth to prevent scraping sounds. At 4:23 p.m., he saw movement in a building 340 meters northeast. A flash of reflected light from a window. Quick, barely visible. König watched through his scope. The light disappeared. He continued watching for 47 minutes. Nothing. Then at 5:10 p.m., he saw it again. Same window, same reflection. This time, König recognized it. Scope lens catching the setting sun. Someone was positioned in that building, watching red square, waiting for targets. König didn't shoot. The distance was manageable, but the angle was poor. His bullet would have to pass through 340 meters of dusty air, past several burning buildings, creating heat shimmer, into a dark window where he could barely see his target. The shot would be difficult. Missing would alert his opponent. Missing would turn the hunter into the hunted. König waited. The sun continued descending. At 5:34 p.m., the angle changed. The reflected light grew stronger as the sun dropped lower. König could now see a shape in the window. Human silhouette partially visible. Still, not enough for a confident shot. At 5:41 p.m., the figure moved, leaned forward slightly. König saw a head, shoulders, the outline of a rifle. The Soviet sniper was adjusting position, getting comfortable for a long observation period. The movement gave König the information he needed. His opponent was settling in, not preparing to relocate. That meant König had time. He studied the shot carefully. 340 meters, slight crosswind from the west, temperature dropping as sunset approached. The cooling air would affect bullet trajectory minimally. König adjusted his aim 2 clicks right for windage. He controlled his breathing. 3 breaths. Hold on the 3rd exhale. Squeeze during the natural respiratory pause. The Mauser cracked at 5:43 p.m. The 7.92 millimeters round covered 340 meters in 0.48 seconds. Through his scope, König saw the figure jerk and fall backward into darkness. The shot had connected. König worked the bolt action and chambered another round. He kept his scope on the window for 90 seconds. No return fire, no movement. Then he withdrew, moving through the textile factory's interior corridors, exiting through a side entrance 80 meters from his firing position. He didn't know if he'd killed Vasily Zaitsev. The figure in the window could have been anyone. A Soviet sniper, a spotter, a regular soldier. König wouldn't know for certain until German intelligence confirmed the kill, but he'd eliminated an active threat in a sector where German casualties had been highest. That night, Soviet radio communications went silent regarding Zaitsev. No propaganda broadcasts, no updates, no mention of the legendary sniper. German intelligence reported this to Major Thorwald. Either Zaitsev was dead, or the Soviets were trying to hide his injury. The truth was complicated. Soviet records from 1942 are incomplete, destroyed during the battle, or lost in the chaos of retreat and counterattack. Zaitsev's memoir, written after the war, describes a duel with a German sniper he called König. The duel lasted several days. Zaitsev claimed he killed König with a shot through a scope lens after discovering his position through patient observation. German records show no SS-Oberscharführer named Erwin König killed in Stalingrad, on the dates Zaitsev described. But German casualty lists from Stalingrad are also incomplete. The 6th Army was destroyed in February 1943. Most records were lost when German positions collapsed. What is certain is this: German sniper activity in Stalingrad's Red Square sector ceased after the 10th of November 1942. Soviet sniper casualties decreased significantly in the same period. Either the German counter-sniper was killed or withdrew. Either Zaitsev died or was wounded severely enough to end his active operations during that period. König's fate remains unknown. He doesn't appear in German casualty lists. He doesn't appear in Soviet kill claims beyond Zaitsev's memoir. He vanished into Stalingrad's ruins, like 500,000 other soldiers who died in that city. But his impact was measurable. From the 21st of September to the 10th of November, German casualties from Soviet snipers in the Red Square sector dropped 67%. Infantry units regained mobility. Supply lines stabilized. One sniper, operating alone, changed tactical conditions for an entire division. The duel between König and Zaitsev became legend. Soviet propaganda turned it into a story of socialist heroism, defeating fascist aggression. German survivors rarely spoke about it. They had more immediate concerns: surviving winter, surviving encirclement, surviving the eventual surrender of the Sixth Army in February 1943. The Battle of Stalingrad killed almost 900,000 soldiers. German dead, 400,000. Soviet dead, 480,000. Civilian casualties, 40,000. The city was destroyed so completely that post-war reconstruction took 15 years. Entire neighborhoods were bulldozed and rebuilt from rubble. König's story was buried in that rubble. One sniper among thousands, one soldier among hundreds of thousands. He arrived in September with a reputation as Germany's best counter-sniper instructor. He disappeared in November after eliminating at least 9 Soviet snipers and reducing German casualties by 2/3 in his sector. Whether he died in that textile factory, whether he was evacuated due to injury, whether he was killed in a different engagement entirely, the records don't say. What remains is the impact. For 7 weeks, an unknown German sniper hunted in Stalingrad's ruins with such effectiveness that Soviet command sent their own legendary marksman to stop him. The result of that confrontation remains disputed. Soviet records say Zaitsev won. German records say nothing. The truth died with the men who were there. But König's methods survived. Counter-sniper tactics developed at Zossen before the war were refined in Stalingrad's crucible. Patient observation, pattern analysis, single-shot elimination, immediate relocation. These principles became doctrine for German sniper training throughout the war. After Stalingrad, German forces trained dedicated counter-sniper teams for every sector where Soviet snipers operated. The lessons König taught through his brief campaign in Stalingrad were applied across the entire Eastern Front. His name was forgotten, but his tactics endured. The men who served with König in Stalingrad rarely spoke about him after the war. Most died in the pocket when the Sixth Army surrendered. The few who survived and were eventually released from Soviet prison camps in the 1950s had limited memories. One former Wehrmacht lieutenant, interviewed in 1963, remembered an older sniper who operated alone in the Red Square sector during October and November 1942. The lieutenant described him as methodical, patient, utterly fearless. He said the sniper disappeared in mid-November. The lieutenant assumed he'd been killed like most specialists who operated in forward positions. No one confirmed it. In Stalingrad, bodies were often unrecoverable, buried under rubble or frozen in positions that couldn't be reached. Soviet veterans had similar memories. A Ukrainian soldier who fought in the Red Square sector recalled German sniper activity that suddenly stopped in November. He said Soviet command celebrated it as a victory. They claimed Zaitsev had killed the German master sniper. Whether that was true or propaganda, the soldier didn't know. He just knew the German shooting stopped and his unit could move more freely. The textile factory where König took his final confirmed shot still stands in Volgograd, the city's modern name. The building has been reconstructed multiple times. The third-floor room, where he positioned himself, no longer exists. The walls were demolished during post-war reconstruction. A plaque commemorates Soviet defenders, lists names of soldiers who died in that sector. No German names appear on it. Erwin König remains a ghost, a man who probably existed, whose actions definitely affected the battle, whose name may have been fabricated by Soviet propaganda. The real sniper, whatever his name, demonstrated that individual skill could influence outcomes even in industrial-scale warfare. Stalingrad was won by artillery, tanks, and mass infantry assaults. But in specific sectors, for specific periods, snipers controlled the battlefield. They made German soldiers afraid to move during daylight. They forced tactical adjustments. They killed officers, specialists, anyone foolish enough to expose themselves. König's mission was to restore German freedom of movement by eliminating that threat. For 7 weeks, he succeeded. Modern military historians debate whether the König-Zaitsev duel actually occurred as described. Evidence is limited, contradictory, often shaped by Cold War propaganda. But the tactical reality is undeniable. German counter-sniper operations in Stalingrad during October and November 1942 significantly reduced Soviet sniper effectiveness. Someone executed those operations with exceptional skill. Whether that someone was named Erwin König, whether he was killed by Vasily Zaitsev, whether he survived Stalingrad and returned to Germany, we'll probably never know. The records are lost. The witnesses are dead. The truth is buried somewhere in Stalingrad's ruins. What remains is the legend. The patient hunter who stalked through destroyed buildings, who eliminated 9 Soviet snipers in 7 weeks, who taught German forces how to fight back against an enemy that had terrorized them for months. The man who became König, the king of Stalingrad snipers, even if that wasn't his real name. His story became the inspiration for countless books and films, including Enemy at the Gates. Fiction embellished the facts, added drama, where reality was already dramatic enough. But beneath the mythology is a truth worth remembering. War is fought by individuals, even in battles involving hundreds of thousands. One skilled soldier operating independently can change conditions for thousands of others. König, whoever he truly was, proved that in Stalingrad's ruins. For 7 weeks in autumn 1942, he was the ghost that Soviet snipers feared. Then he vanished, like so many others, into the city that consumed armies. If this story moved you the way it moved us, do me a favor, hit that like button. Every single like tells YouTube to show this story to more people. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're rescuing forgotten stories from the Eastern Front every day. Stories about soldiers who fought with skill and courage in history's deadliest battle. Real people, real history. Drop a comment right now and tell us where you are watching from. Are you watching from Germany, Russia, United States, somewhere else? You are not just a viewer. You are part of keeping these memories alive. Tell us your location. Tell us if anyone in your family served in World War II. Just let us know you are here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for making sure these stories don't disappear into silence. These men deserve to be remembered, and you are helping make that happen.